This guy has built multi-million-dollar businesses. He's, as Joe says, an entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur just like you all. He's medical staff member of the Super Bowl champion St. Louis Rams. You got any St. Louis Rams fans in the house? Dr. Goodman, you're on your own, bro. I knew that's the response we were going to get. He's written a book called Living a Championship Life. I believe you guys are getting a copy of it if you haven't already. The Game Plan for Success. Please put your hands together for our keynote speaker today, Dr. Rick Goodman. Come up stage, sir.
Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of love.
Thank you. You got my mic? Okay.
So I gotta make sure I get a few more words in, because if I don't, man, it's game over.
Just a couple words.
Dr. Rick, I got a question for you.
Wait, the first word is that Living a Championship Life is being republished in 2020. We got to upgrade it a little bit. But the solutions-oriented leader, which everybody here has gotten, went to #1 on Amazon April 16th.
Attaboy.
Is in 200 Barnes and Nobles, and each and every one of you has a copy of it. So the goal is to make each and every one of them solutions-oriented leaders, although most of them already are.
Yes, sir.
And if you can't get excited about what you do after seeing what you just saw, you are dead. That's all I got to say. You're not breathing. You're not on the planet. So go ahead and ask me your question.
Hey, listen, where are you from, by the way?
St. Louis, Missouri. No, I mean, I got stuck in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a Long Island, New York boy.
That's right, from New York, right?
That's right.
So he was a New York guy. But they knew that when you rolled up and you took over. They said he must be from the East Coast. There's something you talk about in your book called the butterfly effect. What is that?
Well, you know, they talk about the butterfly effect, and, you know, a butterfly starts out as a caterpillar. But really, the essence of the butterfly effect is the fact that you can make one simple change, and it changes the whole course and direction of your life. You know, I remember telling my family that I travel around the world and speak, and my ex-wife would say, yeah, you travel to Florida, you speak to your friends there, in California. And that was 25 years ago, and I've spoken in over 25 countries, over 1,000 speeches, every state in the United States also. And it was just one small incremental change that changed that whole vortex and direction. So today I'm going to give you a number of different steps that you can use to change the direction of your business and expand your business, because that's true transformation. And you guys have an opportunity. See, I never leave home without my ADT fab either, because I've been a customer for over 20 years. And that's how the word spreads. The word spreads by doing the things that you do, and the word spreads with great people like this that you save. See, you're just as important as a doctor, because you save people's lives, just like physicians save people's lives. Don't ever forget that that's the higher purpose that you have, is caring for people's families. That's big picture. But we're going to talk about how to expand the business in a little bit.
So can I leave, or am I going to hang out?
No, you got to stay up here, because see, okay, I like to go deep. And there's one thing that I'm going to tell you that's going to expand your business, and I call it doing your homework. See, people do business with people who they like, who are like them. You'll buy a product from a friend of yours, even if it costs a couple dollars more than go to a local discount place. Now, didn't you just prove that? Because everybody you know just bought that unit, and so did all your friends. So they just demonstrated what happens when you put the good stuff out there. See, so I like to go deep. So I asked a lot of questions before I got involved in working with ADT. So 1 to 5, raise your hands. How many of you got 1 to 5 employees? Okay, how about 5 to 25? 25 to 100. Some of the big dogs, over 100. Who does not know? Okay, so there's a few of you out there that don't know. All right, next question. How often does the ADT email newsletter get distributed? I know this is a tough one. Is it weekly? How many of you think it's weekly? Okay, a few hands. How about monthly? How about quarterly? How many of you don't know because you don't pay attention? Raise your hands. I know there's a few of you out there. It goes out every week. It goes out every week with the exception of 2 times, and that's usually around Christmas time. Holiday time, because we're busy.
I think there was one we should have put. How many of you block it?
Good point. How often do you have team meetings? Really important. How many of you have it weekly? Raise your hands. Okay. How about monthly? Quarterly? Yearly? How many of you do not have scheduled meetings? Raise your hands. Scaring me back there. Not good. Okay. How much time do you spend working together and meeting with your sales team? It's big, important stuff. 1 hour per day? Raise your hands. 1 hour per week? 1 hour every 2 weeks? How about 1 time a month? How about only when the ADT Blue Aces come to town? Yeah, I'd say the majority of you. But you know what? If you notice that right in the front here, they raise their hands, and where are their sales? Okay, you got to be engaging. If you lost a key operations person, how would you train their replacement? How many of you would do it yourself? Raise your hands. Okay. How many of you have created a training manual for your operations team to use? A couple people. How many of you created video training for your operations team to use? 1 person back, 2 or 3, okay. How many of you are in trouble right now? And how many of you have no clue what you would do if a key operations person left? Running your business, doing your installations. What do you think is your biggest obstacle to growth? Can't find enough good people? Salespeople, how many of you feel this way? I spoke to a lot of people last night who said that. How many of you are having problems with chargebacks, not running your office in the back, getting it messed up? Anybody? How about constant turnover? How many of you are having retention problems? Raise your hands. Okay, a few of you out there. How many of you know that you are the biggest obstacle to growth? Anybody? Okay. Thanks for admitting that self-awareness is going to be key to your success. And last, what does ADT stand for? American Dictaphone Telegraph. How many of you know that? Yes. How about America's Drinking Team? Saw you guys up at the SLS last night. I had to leave. I thought they were going to run out. How about Always There? How many of you agree with all of the above? A few of you out there. Perfect. Are you ready to get started with transformation? That is my question.
Dr. Goodman,
because I'm ready to get started. Okay. Well, sometimes we do have technical malfunctions and things that don't work. But the key is, as long as you're focused on constant improvement, you're going to be there. You're going to be happening. But I'd like to talk to you a little bit quickly about what happens in the mind, because your mind really controls what you do. And I was recently in Asia, and I got to do a little speaking. I got to go through the bamboo forest. But growing up in Long Island, we did a lot of crab fishing. Anybody ever go out crab fishing? Well, you know about crabs. So what happens is if you dump the bucket and then you put a little food in the bucket, and the crabs all go in the bucket. And all of a sudden the bucket closes and they usually pull it up. See, what happens is once the crabs are done eating, then there's a couple of crabs that want to escape. They want to get out. But the other crabs start to pull down that other crab. So as that crab is crawling out of the trap, another crab grabs it and brings it down. They will drag those other crabs down until they actually eat themselves alive. That's what happens to crabs. How many of you know people just like this? They've got that crab mentality. They're these stinking thinkers. They're certainly not in this room because they couldn't make it into this room. Only the people that have high expectations, high beliefs, and high goals can be in this room right now. But you know people like that. Those are the people who will tell you all the bad things are going to happen because misery loves company. See, but then you go to the bamboo forest. And if you know anything about the bamboo forest, when they plant the bamboo tree, the first year they will water it, and nothing happens, and they water it every single day. The second year, they water it every single day, and nothing happens. The third year, they water it every single day, and nothing happens. In the fourth year, they water it every single day, and nothing happens. In the fifth year, they water it every single day, and somewhere in the fifth year, within 1 week, that bamboo tree will shoot up 70 feet tall. Now, here is my question. Do you think if they did not water that bamboo tree at any point in time during those preceding 4 years that bamboo tree would have grown 70 feet tall? The answer is absolutely no. It would die. It would wither away and die. See, your business and your transformation is just like the bamboo tree. You've got to inject yourself with information. Right now, you've got to learn how to transform your thinking, optimize your assets, and accelerate your connectivity. When you transform your thinking and you think a little bit different, you'll start to see things differently. When you start to accelerate your connectivity, you're going to see things differently because people want that connection. People want that movement. And when you optimize your assets are every single person in this room. Your assets is all the information you have, the technology in your head. Right now, you're missing an opportunity if you are not coming up here and asking, right here in the front table, how'd you do it? And I'm going to tell you how you did, because I've been listening to a lot of things here. I pay a lot of attention. Sitting in the back room taking notes, I changed my presentation 3 times because I was listening. And you know what I heard? I heard the same thing that I've been telling everybody out there. That sometimes you got to go back to what brought you to the dance. You have to do something that nobody else is doing. And you know what nobody else is doing? Nobody else is picking up the phone these days. Nobody is knocking on doors these days. Nobody is engaging. Why do you think Facebook and Twitter and social media has taken off? How many of you are friends right now with someone that you knew in high school and you would never speak to them in high school, and today you're friends with them on Facebook? Anybody? Right? Why? Because we want to engage, we want that connection. People do business with people who they like or like them. The more you connect, the more you're going to change what's going to happen. See, but one of the things you have to understand is when you're getting started with transformation, it's critical for entrepreneurs to understand why. See, what happens when you transform things is, one, is productivity increases. Second, you get an increase in retention and you attract better people. And third, your income goes up. That's what happens when you start to implement transformational programs into your company. You know, last night I was having a discussion with somebody and they said, what's your biggest challenge? And they said to me the same thing that most of you are saying, I can't find the right people. You know, I bring them in because they're commission salespeople. And I said, you know, you're just doing it wrong. You have to bring people into your culture. I was in Argentina. I was an executive coach for this team I'm going to tell you about. And they said, Rick, you don't understand the culture of the country. And I said, I don't care about the culture of the country. I care about the culture of the company. We hire people into our culture. People would show up at 10 and they would leave at 4. And now people stay forever because we started to hire the right people. We had a goal. We knew exactly what we wanted and we focused on that. We didn't hire the first person who could breathe in a mirror and fog it up. Some of you are doing that. You're wondering why they're leaving. You know, it's kind of like dating. When you're dating and you're desperate, 18 of the biggest losers are going to show up at your front door. And when you finally say, I give up, I don't even care, all of a sudden the perfect person just shows up. It's because sometimes you got to step back and work on the business. There's a book called The E-Myth, The Entrepreneurial Myth. And most people work in the business. That means you're doing the day-to-day stuff, the grinding, the admin. The most successful people work on the business. They're working on the brand because they understand they're in it for the long run. You guys are in it for the long run, just like the bamboo trees, but that means you've got to constantly put that information in. And when we talk about the butterfly effect, think about this. If you improve yourself 1% a day, in 365 days, you are 365% better. Now, who in this room would not give me every single dollar that they have if I can guarantee you a 365% return on your investment? Every one of you would. And yet you still have the ability to do it yourselves. And all you have to do is a little bit each day. You have to eat the elephant one bite at a time. Stresses you out if you attempt to take this all on at once. It's small incremental steps that you'll use each and every day. And you've got to have a game plan for how that's going to happen. So you've got to focus on the culture of the organization. Is your culture one of service? I hear you talk a lot about customers here, and I think we have a little different perspective on things. I don't think you have customers. I think you have clients. See, a customer is a financial transaction. You give me money, and I give you stuff, and that's it. We're done. See, a client stands for care, protection, and guidance. You're going to care for them, you're going to protect them, and you're going to guide them to the best solutions, aren't you? So would you say that you have clients, or do you have customers? Because I think you have clients. Because I think you're out there to care for them, protect them, and guide them to the best solutions. Think about this. Membership has its privileges, doesn't it? American Express coined that. Well, isn't it a privilege to be a client of ADT, knowing that you're protected? Hearing their story, knowing now that we just put new systems in our house also, my whole subdivision. That's why I got my new fab and everything. Now I know I'm protected. Now I just need a few people to show me how to use the thing. You know, I know how to get out and in. But other than that, I may need to step it up a little bit. So we need to do those things. And think about this. When you build that bond with that client, that initial client, just because ADT is taking over it forever doesn't make a difference. You know what happens? When you keep in touch with people, you're now top of mind. My kids always say, Dad, don't be that guy. And I say, no, I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy who's top of mind. So when people come down to Florida, they say, where should I go in Florida? I say, call Dr. Rick, he knows everybody. Now here's the cool thing. If I can help them, I'm excited. If I can't help them, I call 10 friends and find out what I can do to get them information to help them. That makes you top of mind, because then the next time, who are they going to come to? They're going to call their friend that gave them that advice. And then you know what happens? That trickle-down effect. So the more that you're staying in touch with your clients, the more that you're caring for them after the initial sale, the more that you stay in touch and let them know information that's going to help them in the future, the more they're going to connect with you, and then they start to tell their friends. And that's how it starts. That's how word of mouth starts. I'm massively impressed with your commercials. I'm massively impressed with your impressions, because I'm a marketing person. I love to market because it's all about sales and marketing. Think about this. You had to sell your spouse, significant other, on why they should be with you versus someone else. Bottom line sales. So the same thing, you're going to have to always be selling. Selling to your kids, selling to everybody else. Now there's some transformational leadership mottos that you have to understand, and you want to make them a mantra. And the first is you've got to become change-oriented. How many of you are using those cell phones? You know, the ones that look like a brick? Anybody have those? Remember those? Those in the old days? Now we have ones, I can't figure out half the things to use on my phone, but I could tell you that I left it in the park and fly on the way here. So then I pulled out my iPad and I found to find my phone. So I saw my phone at the park and fly. What kind of technology? Change things differently. So you have to learn the word what if. The word what if brings you into possibility thinking. What if this would work? Because a lot of times most people's first reaction is, no, it's not going to work. No, you can't do that. There's a lot of no's out there. I want to see, well, what if it worked? What would it look like? I had a friend of mine come to me and say, you lost a couple $1 million. And my friend knows. He makes a fortune. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, remember I told you about this deal? And you said, it's not going to work. You need to learn to say what if. And you can bet I say what if all the time now. When you lose potential income, you say what if. So what if this works? What would it look like? Start stepping out of your comfort zone. I was just showing one of the vendors how I communicate with my team, because a lot of you have remote teams. I use video email. Why? Because nobody else does it. And I take a little Post-it note, and I put the name right there. So if I was calling Michael doesn't know who the heck I am, he would get an email with a pic, and you'd see my smiling face, and it would just say Michael, and it would just say quick question. Now, do you think he's going to open that up? He wants to know who the heck this guy is. I can tell you, I've sent 10 emails to Miami-Dade Parks and Recreation. I called them 50 times. I sent one video email, and the guy called me back in 2 seconds and said, that was amazing. Why? Because nobody else is doing it. You've got to use differentiation. What is different about you than someone else? What's the highest and best use? Start to look at what you're doing and start to change things. The next is good enough never is. You could always make it a little bit better. Constant improvement of everything. Constant improvement of your marketing. How often have you contacting your customers, your old database? I met the CRM. How many of you are using a CRM system here? Raise your hands. Okay? If you're not using a CRM system, you must be Mr. Mesmo with this amazing memory. See, because you can't remember everything. So my CRM system, it reminds me, it gives me warnings, bells. I put in people's names. I call them up. I'll call up, I might call up Dorian and say, Dorian, how's your son doing? I hear he's playing baseball, and now I can talk to him. Who's the most important person to Dorian in this world? Himself. If I focus on him, he's going to like me. If I focus on me, So what kind of information are you collecting about your clients? Because this is really important stuff. It's the little things that make the big difference, but you've got to do it over and over and over and over again. It's repetition is the mother of skill. And what works can always be better. It can always be better. Now, some transformational leaders you may know, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, they transformed the way we do business today. And then you have Google and Amazon. How many of you have ever gotten a box from Amazon at your house delivered, right? It's like Christmas to yourself every day. You send yourself presents all the time. But they changed the way you shop. You're seeing all these retail places go out because they saw a need. So what is the need? If people are so busy, but they're home at night. Wouldn't it be smart to maybe go knock on a door, send an appointment at night? You know, when they're home, it's a good time. You know, send them some of these videos maybe. Let me show you a preview of what this has done. Tell the story. Because the more you tell the story, then it more makes it personal. It made it personal to you, and that's why you called all your friends. And I could totally see you saying no. But what engaged her? And what engaged her was the person's personality who went to the door. They were just nice. I don't know, I lived in St. Louis, Missouri. Everybody says hello to you there. Coming from New York, nobody talks to you. So it's just about being nice. It's just about doing the right thing and engaging. And here's what I want you to tell each one of your salespeople. I want your salespeople to do this. I want them to risk a yes. See, because sales, we get rejected all the time. It doesn't feel good when you get rejected. But if you switch the paradigm just a little bit and you say, I would like you to risk a yes. Go out there and risk a yes. How many of you have asked somebody to do something and you said, there's no way they're going to say yes? There's no way. And they said yes and you almost fell off your fall. You couldn't believe it. And then you beat yourself up. You said, I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid. Why didn't I do that before? See, if you don't ASK, you're not going to GET. What is the worst thing that can happen? If they say no, you're in the same spot you were 50 seconds before, 30 seconds before, right? They say yes, you just went to the next level. So why not risk a yes? Why not go be bold and ask? I fly first class all the time. I almost never pay for a first class ticket. I just ask. I go up to the person who's complaining to the person at the front gate. You know when it's raining or the flights are delayed, what's everybody doing? They're complaining to the person right there. I come up and apologize for that person. I say, if you could get us out of town, I know you don't control the weather. And they don't. And then I said, do you have anything in first class? Oh, yes, we have one last seat. Let me give it to you. You're just being nice. So you got to sometimes risk. You got to ask for that stuff. Now, there's 4 steps to becoming a transformational leader. Very simply, the first step is you've got to create an inspiring vision. If you are boring, if you don't have a personality, you better get one. You better fake it till you make it, act as if. Bring some energy, because when you bring energy, it's going to change the whole paradigm. Next, motivate people to buy and deliver your vision. Because if you don't motivate them and show them what I call the WIIFM, it's the best radio station in town, 97.3. What's in it for me? That's what they're always asking. Why should I care? What's in it for me? So you've got to show them how they're going to benefit. Benefits, benefits, benefits. Next is you've got to manage delivery of your vision. Because you've already played the phone game. That's why I love video. Because if you think about it, what do millennials like to do? Do they like to text? Do they like to write long letters or email? Or do they like to watch videos? So what do you think you're going to have a better chance of connecting at? But you also have to have ways to connect with people who have gray hair like myself and other people, because we got to communicate across generations. So you're going to have to manage your communication. We'll talk about that in a minute. Build ever stronger based trust relationships with people. And the best way you do that is by delivering. You've got to deliver. And that's why it's so important when you're building solutions-oriented leader sales teams. That's when the production team starts to talk to the sales team. See, because we have a disconnect sometimes when we don't focus on the solutions. It's easy to focus on the problems. My children can pick out any problems, as I'm sure most of yours can also. But focusing on the solutions, that's what you get paid for. You get paid for fixing things, for showing people how to be successful. Stephen Covey always says, begin with the end in mind. Know what you want your outcome to be, and then start to work your way backwards. But what it takes a commitment. And what a commitment is doing the thing you said you would do when the period that it makes you feel really good in has left you. Think about this. How many of you made that commitment to lose weight? I met a few of you last night. We were at the buffet, and I've even spoken to a few of you about it, that commitment to lose weight. And each and every single time, the people told me that they lost the weight, and then they told me that they put it back on. Not unusual. I see this all the time. See, why? Because you lost it and you thought you were successful. I won the race. Now I could just shove. See, but what did I tell you about the bamboo tree? It's constant. Training is constant. You never stop learning. You never stop growing. When you stop learning and growing, you leave the planet. Think about it. You hear these people retire. 2 days later, they're gone. You don't need to retire. What are you retiring to? Right? You're helping people's lives. Is it so hard? You're not throwing bricks, right? You're running successful businesses. But you've got to make that commitment, even when it doesn't feel good. The commitment happens when nobody is watching. That's the hard work. You know, when I'm there on a Sunday and I'm talking to Kevin McKeever for an hour and a half, brainstorming ideas about your meeting here. That's when the work happens. It's not here. This is the easy part. The hard part is the preparation. And that's why people say, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. People say to me, oh, you're lucky all the time. You know what my daughter says? My daughter says, you don't know the backstory. You don't see all the hours Dad puts in. That's the difference. If you're going to be successful, you got to put in the hours. I know you guys put in tons of hours. You can't operate a business with all those people and not put in hours. You can't mail it in. It takes a lot of work. So here's a 5-step transformation action plan for you. The first thing that you have to do in any transformation is you've got to manage an individual team assessment. You got to assess the people on your team. Are they up to the challenge? Do you have the right people? Because if you don't have the right people, either you got to train them up, you got to find out, you got to coach them up, and if you need coaching, you got to get some coaching too, because you can't be on an island by yourself. The next is you've got to develop individualized action plans, because everybody's different. And if you got children, you know they're different. So some people need a little bit of help here, some people need help there. You're always better off making the save. Find out what people like to do, because you may find that they have a skill that's going to benefit your business and you never ask them about it. Set management and team goals, because you've got to have goals if you're going to achieve anything. You got to have that roadmap. And then create a symbolic focus. Now, the symbolic focus is really important. And every single sports team I've worked with, every single major organization I've worked with has a symbolic focus. In fact, you have a symbolic focus also. We just watched The Lifesavers. That's a symbolic focus. So a symbolic focus could be a newsletter, it could be a trophy, something that people can focus on. Gamifying things, because people love to play games. So if you could make it fun and make it a game, all of a sudden you're going to see production increase, you're going to see sales increase. We see it happen all the time. I was working with Franklin Templeton Investments on a new product. It was K2 Liquid Alternatives. They had never done it. And we did a solutions-oriented sales program for them. And for the next 12 months, what we did was, we followed up each month. I did a video for them, and we did a little program, 10 minutes, and then my bar at home looks like the ESPN desk. So we put the green screen behind, and then each month I would show who were the leaders for the month, and then here's the rest of the leaderboard, like you'd see on the Masters. People love to see themselves on TV and in the newspapers. How many of you have ever been on TV before? Raise your hands. I mean, not standing behind the camera going like this, you know, like a lot of you do that, you know, or in a newspaper. And what do? You show it to everybody. Well, I guess it makes you feel good about you, right? So when they get to see this, it revs it up, and everybody also sees it. So what is that? That's called accountability. Because then you got some salespeople that are slacking. If they've got any kind of confidence or any fight in them or any game, they're going to see the other people going, I want to beat that person. Just like many of you here, you see that leaderboard out here, and like, next time, I'm beating these guys. Next time we come here, I'm going to be number 2 or number 3. I'm not going to be number 5, 6, 7, or 10. Because people want to get up there and be competitive. So if we can gamify this with a symbolic focus, you can take it to the next level. And you make it your own. You make it your own. Now, I want you to meet a guy named John Leone. Now, John Leone is the head of Heineken in St. Martin. And Heineken's one of my biggest clients. But I'm going to let John tell you a little something quick.
This is John Leone on the beautiful island of St. Martin. I've been blessed to know Rick Goodman, and his mentorship helped me overcome some great obstacles and devastating circumstances that happened over the past 2 years. Pick up his new book, The Solutions-Oriented Leader. It's action-packed, full of great tips that can help you lead your organization and your personal life to new heights.
I love a guy like that. Is that a great client? Right, giving you all those kudos, but here's the thing. I didn't do anything for John Leone. I've known John Leone for 10 years now. I did a negotiation program with all the executives of Heineken, and I always say at the end, if you ever WWRD, wonder what would Rick do? You pick up the phone, you call me. If you ask me something specific, I will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. But if you ask me some hypothetical question, you will never hear from me. Because I know the brain works in specifics. And he called me because they were getting ready to get rid of a distributorship in St. Martin, and he was the head salesperson. And I knew something about beer. See, they brew it on this island at Burns House because I work with them here also, but you know what? They don't brew it in St. Martin. They're just a distributorship. They cared about overhead and profits. During the recession, they had a whole bunch of overhead that was not worth it. So we said, let's get rid of the buildings, let's raise beer sales, we're going to give it $1 buyout, and that's it. And John now is the head of Heineken. I've been to every Heineken regatta since. I'm just going to miss this one. But the reason I'm telling you is I was just Yoda along the way. John had to do the things himself. See, in 2017, Hurricane Irma came through and took out St. Martin. And this was John's house before and after. John took his wife, Wendy, his kids in the basement, and they just prayed they would come out alive. The next day, he called me, and he said, what am I going to do? And I said, well, you kind of know what to do already, don't you? The Heineken Regatta is coming up in 2 weeks, and there's no food, water on the island, and you've got to do something. So what did he do? The first thing he did, he had to assess the situation, because that's what you have to do with your businesses. So he assessed the situation. The second thing that he did was he started to make a plan. But he didn't just have one plan, he had a backup plan and a backup plan, because if you just have one plan and that plan fails, where do you go from there? So he had redundant systems set up. Then he communicated his vision to every single person on the island, to everybody on the island. And then he got people involved. He got his good friend John involved, who owns all the Domino's pizza places, and he gave him a generator that he had in the house so he can get them up and working so they could feed everybody. But the symbolic focus they had was that Heineken Regatta. And he knew if he got everybody focused on that symbol, everybody on the island, they would start to forget a little bit about the devastation that happened. And sure enough, John Leone pulled it off. And all he did was put those simple steps into action. He knew what he had to do. When he called me up, he said, what do I do? I said, you know what you got to do. Because that's what a coach does. I don't do the heavy lifting for you. I'm going to show you what you got to do, and you got to go out there and make it happen, just like I had to make it happen. I've got coaches, they say, do this, and I just do it, because they're successful too. It's called OPE, other people's experiences. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's been invented. It's a pretty good thing. All you got to do is improve it a little bit. You don't have to reinvent the business completely. You've got a great, solid core business. I loved when you were saying, let's not get off of what we do, because that's when businesses fail. I love when you talk about Kodak. You know why? Because my friend Jeffrey Hazlett was the CMO for Kodak. And I show a picture of me and him on his farm in South Dakota, because Kodak was all owned by the chemists. And 70% of it was owned by the chemists. They had a camera, digital camera, way before anybody else. But the chemists were fighting it because they thought they'd lose money. And then he tried to save them. If you remember, he was on The Apprentice. And he tried to save Kodak. They tried to go into copy machines. And by that point, it failed. Stick with what you do best and expand on that. Your core is saving people's lives. How else can you save people's lives? How could you make people's lives more effective? That's when you start to transform. That's when you start to look at big picture, because that's where you want to go. Now, my transformational journey started when I was 24 years old, and my patients would say, are you old enough to be a doctor? And I would hire people older than me because I thought it made me look older. And I went through 200 front desk people my first 2 years in practice. See, because I wasn't a very effective communicator. My dad was a teller. He would tell you what to do. See, when I was 15 or 16 years old, I was probably like a lot of you, and I said, you know what? I can't wait to get out of my parents' house. Nobody's going to ever tell me what to do again. Anybody like me? Right? Oh, we are dealing with children in big people's clothes. So how do you think my communication was? Well, when this woman walked in my office and she slammed the door and she said, if you ever speak to me like this again, I'm out of here. I swear on my children's life to this day. I don't know what the heck she was talking about, but I'm sure she was right. You don't lose 200 front desk people by being an effective communicator. So then I went out and I met doctors that kept their staffs for 20, 30 years, and then the staff would will their children to work for the doctor when they were done. And I started to communicate more effectively. But at the time, I really didn't know. I thought it was all about me. I didn't realize it was all about them. It's all about the client. It's not about me. And I wrote this book called My Team Sucked, 10 Rules That Turned Them into Rock Stars. The reality, it wasn't my team that sucked, it was me. It was all my communication. So I had to communicate differently. I had to make that little shift. And by making that little shift, I keep my staff now. I'm working with people I've known for 20, 30 years. Most of the people I'm in business with, I've known since either kindergarten or 6th grade. I connect with people everywhere I go. There's nowhere I can go in the world without knowing somebody and connecting with them. See, but what I didn't understand at that point, why you are not retaining people, is this reason. Employees don't quit the job, they quit the boss. Simple as that. If you train them, if they feel a bond, if they know you care about them, if they know that you're there to help and support them, which is what a transformational leader does, you give them the vision and the tools and support them to hit their goals. That's what you do. And who wins the most? You do. That's where you win the most. When you grow people. See, solutions-oriented leadership and transformational leadership is not about developing followers. It's about developing other leaders. I was reading a study that 75% of CEOs say the biggest challenge in this country is that we don't have leaders that are trained to be leaders. Mid-level management, we don't have people to replace them with because they don't have the skill sets. So you've got to give your people some of these skill sets. You've got to listen. Tomorrow, those breakout sessions, if you're laying on the beach, you're a fool. This is the time when you're going to make money. This is when you're working on the business, not in the business. This is when the best stuff happens. In the bars, some of the good stuff happens, believe it or not. Because that's when you can communicate, connect, and plan strategies. And if you're not doing this, you're losing money. Because someone already has figured out a great way to do it, and all you got to do is ask them, and I'm sure people in this room will help you because you're at a high level. It's called masterminding. So a self-analysis is going to be your first step. Start to look at you. Look at the business. Then you got to bring some energy. You got to change your attitude. Your mind doesn't know the difference between something actually happening and something imagined vividly in great detail. It's going to make you right every time. If you don't believe this, how many of you said bad things happen in threes? Or your mom and grandma said, bad things happen in threes. Anybody had that mom and grandma? And all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, 4, they kept coming. And you know what you said, Jeremy? See, I knew I was right. I knew I was right. I knew it was going to be one of those days. Here's my question. What'd you ever get for being right? I'm right all the time. I think I am. At least my kids think that I think I am. I haven't gotten anything. So if you got something, let me in on this because I want to get something too. So reality is it's about that energy. Every single day I wake up, I say the same exact thing. I say I'm a healthy, vital, active, happy, and successful human being. I affirm today that all tissues and organs in my body are functioning perfectly, and that's the way it's supposed to be. I am more relaxed than before because I choose peaceful, loving thoughts and release my fears, worries, and anxieties. Tension is gone because I am creating an atmosphere of ease and confidence. My mind is uncluttered because I have set specific goals and planned action steps for their accomplishment. I feel better now. Nature uses the food that I eat, the air that I breathe, the water that I drink, and the rest that I get to rebuild, repair, and revitalize me for the future. Radiant energy flows through me. I also affirm today that money is plentiful and an abundant supply, and this money flows freely and constantly into my life as I render loving service to all mankind. What do you say? Because the way you start your day determines your whole day. The way you think determines how your outcome's going to be. So you got to start focusing on your brain, on how you're thinking. Now, I know bad stuff happens. It happens to me too. People say, how could you all be up? Lori said to me the other day, literally I called Lori. I was sitting at a red light. I just simply wanted to go get my suit pressed. The cleaners is about 100, 200 yards from my house. I drove over there. I'm going to go back. I'm going to work on these programs. I was working with Quest Diagnostics. I'm sitting at the red light, and all of a sudden, boom! I'm feeling my neck going like this, all over the place. This woman just was not paying attention and slammed right into me. She wasn't too happy that she slammed into me, so she wasn't being nice to me because she hit me. I couldn't figure this one out. So I decided I'm going to go get her my business card because she wouldn't tell me her name. So I went and got my business card. I pulled it out, and as I'm closing my door, this happened. Slammed this right in the door. Now I'm holding my arm in the air like this, bleeding, gushing. And the policeman said, I said, we're parked in the hospital, right in front of the hospital. I pulled over there so I wouldn't be in the streets. And the policeman said, well, we don't have a bandage. He said, here. He gave me 5 napkins, Burger King napkins. So I wrapped them around my hand. I went home. I called Lori, and she goes, you're the most positive person I've ever met. You just got rear-ended, you hit your car, and you're happy. And I said, what's the alternative? I give myself an hour to be down, to give myself the pity party, to beat myself up. We deserve to beat ourselves up every once in a while. But you know what the most successful people do? They dust themselves up, they pick themselves up, and they go. For those of you who live in Kansas City, what do you think would have happened in the playoff game if they just said after 3 touchdowns, I'll forget it? If Mahomes just said, I'll forget it, you know what? No, what did he do? He dusted himself up, he picked himself up, and he made it happen. That's what you do. That's what successful people do. That's what superstars do. And each and every one of you in this room is a superstar, or you wouldn't be here. So yeah, bad stuff's gonna happen. People are gonna leave you. So what? You'll get it done, because that's why you're here. But it's all about what goes in here. It's about that attitude. Now, we've got some transformational leaders here also. We've got Brandon Barn and Lisa Armstrong. Lisa, are you here? You're there. Come up here, Lisa. Is Brandon here, or is Brandon still sleeping? Brandon still sleeping? Oh, you made it. Come on up here, brother. Now, I want to tell you that I reach out, because I do my homework, so I reached out to a few of you. I will keep you nameless, the people who did not, come on up, who did not get back to me. But I wanted to do my homework because I wanted to find out, what do you guys need? What's important? And I talked to Lisa first, and we talked for a long time. And Lisa is going to be leaving in the next 5 minutes, because I just got the phone call, and she's having a baby, her daughter, she's having a grandchild. So she's like, no, it can't come until the weekend's over, next week. So I talked to her a lot, and talking about what's going on about her business and about the expansion of her business and what her goals were, and her excitement that her sons are in the business now. They started a little business, but now they're responsible in the business. And I could feel the energy come from her. And then I spoke to Brandon, and we had a great conversation, and he's like, we got to get on video. And we got on video, and I told him last night, you got to get rid of that picture on LinkedIn, you know, because people look on LinkedIn, right? And you got that big thing, and that shirt under it doesn't work. You look much better here. So, and Brandon was telling me all about how he started and the things he had to go through. And the one thing that I knew is it took a lot of energy. And my good friend Steve Spangler has an energy stick. He's the science guy. And in your hands, you have 3 volts of electricity in each finger, 15 in the hands. So when you're bringing energy into a situation, you're really bringing it into a situation. Have you ever gone to a party and you met somebody and you felt like you were kindred spirits and you could talk all night? And have you ever been with people that are like emotional vampires that can suck the life out of you? You ever been with these people? These are people who like, they complain about winning the lottery. Not happy people. Well, they could drain you of energy too. When you bring energy into a relationship, it bonds. So I want you to just hold on the stick a second. It's okay. So if she holds on the stick, nothing's going to happen. But if she then grabs my hand a second, that energy comes through the stick and it lights up. Now when she goes and grabs Brandon's hand, and then Brandon comes over. I'm gonna go right in the middle here. Here we go. Grab that stick. It lights up even more, okay? Because now it's the energy circuit. You guys all know about circuits, right, with ADT. So it's the energy circuit. So by bringing this energy, this is mapping the energy. So when we bring energy into a relationship, it causes electricity. That's how you could really sell. And if you're not on and you're like, hello, you're zapping that person's energy. They want to get away from you. Don't you want to be around people that are attracted, they're fun, they're happy, and they're great? And then it's like going into the soggy egg roll thing from the Chunking commercials back in the day. It's a bad party. Now, also, your energy in your body is what brings everything to the table. And if you're having a bad day, it's going to affect you physically. If you're mentally not right, it's going to affect you physically too. So Brandon, I want you to come over here. Lisa, you can just stand over here a second. And Brandon's a pretty big guy, wouldn't you say? Pretty big guy, right? So Brandon, I want you to hold your arm out here. And I'm going to just push it down. I want you to fight me as much as you can. Oh my gosh, it's a pretty strong guy. Okay, so put your arm down, relax a second. Brandon, here's the deal. I want you to visualize this. You guys are growing pretty big, right? You're doing pretty good though. So. Okay, you're up here, no big deal. Here's the deal though, Brandon. 50 of your best people just left. And the biggest problem is, you've got to go back to what you did day one. Remember that? Remember when you're knocking on doors? I want you to hold your arm out here like this. Hold it strong. It's just like that day, right? See? Now, you see, it just went down, okay? Because all I have to do is put a suggestion in his brain. Because you know what I said to him? The question I asked of him, what would you say was the biggest challenge to your success? And he said in the early days, I was the biggest block to my own success. Correct? Correct. And that's self-awareness. But also, if you have that attitude and that energy is not strong, you just sort of zapped it right there. Went down, okay? Because you bring the energy into it. So if you don't think your attitude, what you bring to the table, your attitude about your business affects your business, you just saw it could change in 1 second and totally zap the energy, and then you can't think straight. You can't think in solutions. You're putting out fires now. And you don't want to be putting out fires. You want to be thinking in solutions. Guys, thank you very much. And here's what I'm going to do for you. Give him a round of applause, please. You both have kids. You're going to have grandkids. So I'm going to give him a book. I'll tell a story in a little bit, but I'm going to give you a book called Jamie's Journey, Travels with My Dad. Okay? There you go. And it is written by my daughter, Jamie Goodman. Go have a seat. Thanks, guys. Perfect. Okay. So when we're talking about communication, we talk about the golden rule. How many of you believe in the golden rule? Do unto others as do unto you. Raise your hands. Okay, stupid rule. Think about this. Would you treat all your children the same exact way? Golden rule says do unto others. I got Goodman's rule. Do unto others as they need to be done unto. Everybody's different, isn't it? They're all different. So I can't communicate to my children, my family the same way. So this is my family, my son Alex, my daughter Jamie, and my mom. Now my son Alex knows everything. Just ask him. He's the smartest guy in the room. You just tell him. And he went out to LA and he wanted to be a manager. So I said, fine, go out there. We had set him up and put him in a good position. And he was working for a company called LA Talent. And he was managing, he was just as an assistant, and he was working with all these big actors. And then they moved him to kid actors. And then they moved him to kid print models. And then he was doing time. Does anybody have employees that are doing time? They're just showing up, punching the clock, and doing time. Well, people can tell when you're doing time. He was doing it because he wanted to get a year on his resume so he could move on. I do a lot of disruptive things in communication. Some of them you might say are crazy, but I call it my Miyagiisms. Mr. Miyagi, you know, the wax on, wax off, you put it all together, it's a plan. Well, my son called me up because he was having some challenges. And I was having challenges too, because my assistant Shirley, who was with me for 13 years, was kind of mailing it in. I've got a number of internet companies that were making almost $1 million in my underwear, and when my wife passed away from cancer after 7 years, I kind of was like Cain and traveling around the earth and not really focused, and I was allowing Shirley to run the business in the ground, and finally I said, Shirley, we got to do a process of dance. We got to make videos. We got to do all this stuff. And she said, I can't do this. I don't have the right tools. I can only do it from my house. I said, have you ever taken a field trip when you were in school? She said, yeah, all the time. I said, good, we're going to take a field trip to the Aventura Mall. And I went to the Aventura Mall and I bought the biggest, fattest Mac computer you could ever imagine. Well, Shirley was sitting in the car and she had that passive-aggressive look because she had to work, actually, now. Well, my phone rang and it was on speakerphone. It was my son. He said, Dad, could you talk? I said, yeah, what's up? He said, Dad, I just got fired. I said, Alex, that's great. He said, what? I said, Alex, that's great. I said, Alex, you were just doing time. I said, Shirley is sitting right next to me. She's doing time also. I said, now you know what you don't want to do. Now, here's the thing. I could have said to him, what are you going to do? You better call your mother. I'm not giving you money. You know, how are you going to survive out there? And what would have happened? Boom, nosedive. You all have children, right? If a child falls and you say, are you okay? What's the first thing that happens? If you say, get up, you're fine, what do? They get up and they're fine. You feeling this? You're leaders. Your team goes where you go. If Joe got up here and said, oh man, we're a mess. He said, we were a mess before, now we're great because I'm here. But if you said we're a mess, you'd be, oh my God, what do we got to do? What are we going to do now? You start panicking, and all of a sudden that attitude, all that rushes. So what does a horse do when you're watching a horse race? What do they have on their heads? Blinders. It's your job to keep the blinders on and keep the team focused on the goals. That's what you do. So that's what I did with my son. It turned out okay. My son now manages some of the biggest comedians in the world. Sebastian Maniscalco is one of them. Bert Kreischer. And then the other day he called me up. I was speaking out in California. He said, Dad, do you want to come up to LA? I said, Alex, I'm in Palm Springs. I'm speaking tomorrow. He said, it's only a 2-hour drive, Dad. I said, okay. He said, I want you to be a guest of mine. So I got to go hang out and be a guest of Cal Mitchell because my son manages Cal. And I was on the Dancing with the Stars. And my daughter was texting my son saying, stay in the green room, Dad's going crazy. He's doing selfies with Christy Brinkley and all this stuff, but people are people. So why not? It's about disruption. You've got to disrupt some of your employees. If you want to be nice and want everybody to like you and love you, you're not going to make money. Sometimes you got to disrupt it because it's the best thing to happen. And with my daughter, I disrupted her a little bit more. My daughter, when my wife was sick, she said to me, you know what, you need to spend more time with Jamie. You spend so much time, and Alex is behind the bench, he's with the players, all this good stuff. So I decided I was going to take my daughter on a trip. And we were going to go away for a couple of weeks. We were going to go to Europe. But I have a disease. It's called OTT, over the top. Everything I do gets bigger. So I decided it was going to be a month. And we were going to take off. And I was at my speakers convention in Indianapolis. And I was going to pick up my daughter in St. Louis, get her ready the day before. She'd never been to Europe. And I got in the cab and my phone rang. And I picked up the phone and it was my daughter and she said, Dad, no offense? Anybody ever get the no offense line? I was already offended. She said, I want to hang out with my friends. I want to do this. Could you come tomorrow? I gave the cab driver $5. I got into the hotel. I rebooked my hotel room. I changed my plane flight. I called up my ex-wife and said, she won't need her computer. It'll be fine. I got to St. Louis. When we got to the airport, I told her my phone wasn't working. I said, I need to see your phone. We're at the airport. She gave me her phone. I said, great. Now you got to talk to me for the next month. 16 years old. We started out in St. Louis to Chicago, London, Paris, Rome, Florence, San Gimignano, Chianti, Venice, Siena, Madrid, Israel, and back. Every single place we went, my daughter would collect people and invite them out to dinner, perfect strangers. Then when we got to Florence, I was excited to go to this new restaurant. I bent down, blew my back out, couldn't move, and we go into this restaurant, and the restaurant only has bar stools. So I said, we're going to go to this other restaurant. We're going to go to Giostra. I've been there before. I walked in. We sat down at this table. They gave us right away. 2 minutes later, a woman walks over to me with a skirt. She pulls up a skirt. Doc, look at my knee. This was the patient from hell, the one you picked straws to see who got stuck with. 76 years old, showing me her knee in the middle of a restaurant, and then she says, oh, you remember my boyfriend? Her boyfriend owns a restaurant. It's famous in my family because I went there in London, took one bite of the meat. It was so tough, I sent it back, and then they charged me for the whole thing. They said I ate too much. If you want to know the name of the restaurant, it's on TripAdvisor, scathing report. So she starts laughing because she knows the whole story because I didn't let it go. And then the woman looked right at my daughter and said, Doc, is this your girlfriend? My daughter's like, that's gross, this is my father. Now, behind her, this family was losing it, this couple. Completely losing it. My daughter starts talking to them. She invites them out to dinner, and they happen to be the biggest leather dealer and his wife, who's a big designer. And we're walking down the streets of Florence at 2:30 in the morning now. And my daughter grabbed my hand and said, Dad, we make a great team. When we got back, we both journaled. It was supposed to be my book, A Dad's Guide to Traveling with a Teenage Daughter, Generation Y. Like, why would you do it? It's in her book, Jamie's Journey, Travels with My Dad, which I just gave to Lisa and Brandon. Went to #4 on Amazon. We did the Today Show. We did TV and radio all over. My daughter got a journalism scholarship to the University of Missouri Journalism School, and now she writes for Senior Living magazine. See, what we did was we dropped technology and we connected. Are you hearing this? Is this making sense? They knocked on her door, got the sale. You got to connect with people. You got to connect with them. You got to get their attention in any way you are. People say to me, it was the greatest thing I ever did. My daughter and I are so close. Just Wednesday when I was speaking at Quest Diagnostics, she's in Chicago and I got to go out to dinner with her. And she's like, you let me make decisions and let me book dinner. You never do that. You're a control freak, Dad. And I said, well, you proved to me that you can do this. I developed another leader. Now I'm out. My job is done. What's your job to do that? Because it's about your legacy too. It's not just your children. It's all the people that you work with. It's all your team. You're building them. What do you want them to say about you as a leader? Because you're all leaders. What do you want them to say about you 20 years from now? They're walking down the street. Michael, do you want them to walk the other side of the street, or do you want them to come up to me and say, thank you so much, I really appreciate everything you did? And I guarantee they're going to say, I really appreciate everything you did because I see how you run your business. I could just see it. Organized, efficient, simplistic, basics, talking to people. That's what everybody wants. That's what you got to get back to. So how can we do it? One of the things I love to do is the morning huddle. Football teams do it too. You want to connect with your team. I do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Do you know why? You know what the people on your teams think you're doing right now? Drinking, partying, have a good time. They don't know that you're sitting in here listening, that you're going to be sitting in breakout sessions tomorrow and growing. So the morning huddle is simple. It's 15 minutes. That's it. I call it a coffee huddle now. So Monday morning, I come in, I get together with the team, and the first thing I say is, this is what I'm going to be working on. This is what I'm going to be doing. You know why? Because they don't think you're doing anything. So as a leader, you got to be available and visible, especially if you have remote teams. So you could do this on Skype, you could do this on Zoom.us, all these different venues to doing it. So I'll meet with them. Then I'll say, what do you need help with? What is it? Because I want to give them the tools. Break. Wednesday, what'd you guys get done? Here's what I'm working on. What do you need help with? Break. Friday, here's what we got done. Here's what we got going next week. It's not a meeting. Think about it. What does the quarterback do? The quarterback gets in a huddle, right? You go this way, you got a block. Sometimes you audibles, but everybody knows it's about communication. It's about keeping communicated. So the morning huddle, great stuff. Delegation. How many of you have challenges with delegation? I'm going to give you the #1 delegation tool I ever developed. It's called check back. And check back is not check up. See, how do you feel if someone's checking up on you? What are you thinking? Don't trust you, can't do the job. You can be the best worker on the planet. If I'm standing behind your back, you're going to make mistakes. So check back is very simple. I may go to Joe and say, Joe, I need you to get this task done for me. When can I check back with you? Now I've just put the ball in Joe's court. Now Joe can say, well, you can check back with me in a couple hours or a couple days. Now I get out of his way. I used to be the type of guy who would give you 10 things to do. I'd go in my office for 10 seconds, come up and give you another 10 things to do. I would drive you insane. And there's something called the zone of the flow. You've all been in the zone of the flow. You know, you're banging out work, getting things done. Someone interrupts you can't get back to that basic spot again, right? So I want to get in that zone of the flow. So I want to make sure not interrupt them. Now, the key to check back is you must check back. Every single one of you has had this happen in your lifetime. Someone said to you, I need you to drop everything you're working on. I need you to get this done. You dropped everything you're working on. You got it done, and they didn't use it for a week, a month, or ever. How many of you had that happen? And you know what you said to your brain? The next time, I'm not doing it. So you've got to check back. But by putting it in someone else's court, by letting them come back to you, you now have accountability. If I just said, Joe, I need you to get this done, and I go a couple hours later and Joe goes, well, listen, I had this problem, and I had to do this, I had to do this, he could say, make excuses. So I want to put it back in their court. Let them come back, because now you can hold them accountable with check back. It's a fantastic rule. I want you to meet a guy named Doug. Doug is the king of engagement. You want to learn how to engage your clients, how to mix with your employees. This is the guy. He not only hangs out and drags snakes out of his clients' backyards, he comes down, he drinks beers at St. Louis Cardinals games. He comes down to Miami taking selfies with me. He can't walk down the streets without knowing people. Every month he gets together with his best clients, brings them in for a weekend, and he's the biggest kid in the house. He was just in Africa. He was hanging out with Maasai warriors. And when he was on safari, this is what happened to Doug. That's Doug. Now you wonder who Doug is. Doug's my financial guy. And when my wife was really sick, Doug said, what are you going to do with the money? And I said, I'll just leave it with Jackie's person. And Doug said, you know what? You don't have a lot of money. I'm going to just send it all to Jackie's person. What do you think I did with all of my money? I left it all with Doug. Do you know why? Because Doug has the ability to confront. Your ability to confront is going to be directly proportionate to your ability to be successful. Jeremy's shaking his head. You have got to have a high level confront, which means you got to ask the tough questions. You can't let things go aside. You can't let the giants become monsters. But if you let it get out of hand, it'll grow. It could be your back room, could be that giant. Chargebacks could be your giant. Employee turnover could be your giant. So you got to be able to confront that issue. You can't stick your head in the sand like an ostrich and hope it'll go away. And Doug asks those questions. He almost makes you feel naked because he's asking you so many questions about your business. But what he's doing is he's doing his homework. He's finding out what's important. As a salesperson, if you're going to someone's house, you got to find out all those things. Who's the important people to them? You met this beautiful family. You know who's important to them. You've got this great PR thing going on right now with all these people. You know who's important to them. Now you got to ask the same questions yourself, because that's how you sell. Find out, protect those people. Real easy to do. So you got to confront. Unless there's Neutrona Connection. This is the company I told you about in Argentina. And they implemented the same thing. They came to me and they said, Rick, I don't know what to do. I got this because I sent Luciano Salata, the president of Neutrona, my book, My Team Sucked. 10 minutes later, he called me up and said, Rick, my team sucks. I need to meet you at Houston's restaurant on Monday. And again, what was the scenario? I realized it wasn't his team that sucked. He had a $20 million company doing absolutely amazing. But what he said to me when I called him, because I said, I want to tell you a story. And he said, you always discount what you did, Rick. And I said, he said, we had a great company. He said, but every team, every player, every great athlete has a coach. And what you helped us do were two things. You helped us with communication, and you helped us with recognition. Because everybody wants love, appreciation, and respect. Like the food they eat, the air they breathe, and the water they drink. He said, you helped us to communicate more effectively. Their symbolic focus was a newsletter. These people threw a newsletter party. And when I started with them, I told him about the newsletter. He thought it was crazy. But it had to be a printed newspaper. Why? Because I want people to take it home. If it's electronic, it's just another piece of email. And it started out one page. They threw a party with the newsletter. It is now 40 pages long. And one day, I said, it's going to be a refrigerator score. And they said to me, what's a refrigerator score? And I said, have you ever gone bowling? You get a good score, you put it on the refrigerator, or your kids do a beautiful picture, gold star, put it on the refrigerator? That's what it is. I was doing a job for a company called Bolloré Logistics, huge French company, and I get an email from the CEO of Neutrona right before. And what it was a picture of the vice president of sales refrigerator in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hanging on it was the Neutrona connection. Because symbolic focus works. Symbolic focus is important. You've got to create something for your team. Brandon's company, they have the t-shirts. That's their symbolic focus. And as you progress up, you get different t-shirts. And him and I were discussing all kinds of different ideas on meetings and what he could do to get an increase and get 100% people showing up as meetings that are voluntary instead of 75%. By making it more important, because he knows how important it is because it helped him. When you know that it's important and you're helping people, they'll buy you. They can buy you. You can tell, do you think I like what I do? I love what I do. Because you can't sell what you don't own. So you've got to know that you're helping people. Well, these are a group of people that I worked with. Some of you may recognize them. LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and this was taken right before Game 6 against Dallas. We were all happy until we lost. See, the problem was, you got one. See, the thing was, LeBron James was not sharing. He wasn't playing like a team player. He wasn't communicating. He was holding the ball. And then what he did was he didn't accept responsibility. He started to say that every single person in Miami was going to go back to their own miserable lives and he was going to do his own thing. And then he disappeared for 3 months. In fact, he came down here and hid away for a little bit. He came back 3 months later. And in the locker room, after practice, he was complaining to anybody who would listen. See, being from New York, you could take the New Yorker out of New York, but you can never take New York out of the New Yorker. I've got a filter that's about this big and a tolerance level for prima donnas that is negligible. Well, when he started to say this, I looked out of the corner of my eye and I saw his shorts. They were sitting on a chair. I took LeBron James' shorts and I put his shorts on. And I put these shorts on, looking kind of ridiculous, and then I went off. And I said, you know what? You're never going to win a championship until you start playing like a team. When I was with the St. Louis Rams, I was with them when they went from worst to first. I worked on their brains and their bodies, but what I found out was that until they started to play like a team and come together, they were never going to win, and you are never going to win until you start playing like a team. Udonis Haslem looked right at me with the look of, Doc, you better get the heck out of here. So I walked out of the locker room, but I still had the shorts on. Well, as things happened, they started playing unbelievably like the greatest show on earth was for the St. Louis Rams. It was the same way with the Miami Heat. I kept saying to my son, could you believe this you know how lucky you are? This is like watching the Olympic team, the best team on the planet every single day. Well, they ended up winning the championship, and there was a rumor about a symbolic focus. There was a rumor that they had a trophy that they had all had made up. And this trophy on it said, Together, Tough, and Trust. And it said, All In. And on the trophy, there were 16 gold notches. The notches were only put in the trophy when they would win a game, because they would not celebrate. They would not let anybody know about this trophy until they got the 16 notches because they blew it the year before. Well, 2 weeks after the championship, there was a knock at my door. And there was a box. And all of a sudden, I opened up the box, and there was this trophy. I couldn't think who got it for me. And underneath it, on the bottom, it said number 1 out of 4,000. I was like, wow, President Obama didn't get number 1. Number 1 out of 4,000. Inside was a card. And the card said, here's a symbol of our appreciation for your guidance and support. Hey, Doc, you can keep the shorts, LeBron. Now, he wasn't ever going to get the shorts back. The next year, it was a little bit more fun, hanging out with the boys, a little bit more smiles. But the reality was that none of these teams won championships. None of these businesses won anything until they learned to transform their thinking, optimize their assets, and accelerate their connectivity. Each and every one of you has the ability to do that. You have the ability to give the vision to your teams. You have the ability to create a symbolic focus. You've already got symbolic focus. You've already got awards. You've got people's lives in the balance. But it's going to be your vision and your motivation that's going to get the job done. You all have a higher purpose here. You're in the business of saving people's lives. You've got a family that you saved their house. The world would be a lot different for them today if you were not here. So I thank you, I know they thank you, and I want to thank you all for doing what you do and for protecting my house also. Have a great, great week. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Outstanding job, brother. Well done.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. One more time, Dr. Rick Goodman, guys. Dude, he worked. He's walking off sweating. Doc, those shorts are pretty sick. 4X. Can I have them? No shot, huh? 100 grand. See? Always making money.